John, I remember speaking at a Citibank conference for disruptive brands. And before I went up and spoke, one of the founders of this company, Casper Beds, they call it a unicorn. It's crazy.
Okay.
In 1 year, they were in 7 continents and doing $1 billion in sales and raised billions and billions of dollars. And it was just insane. And I got up there and I said, listen, if you want to hear that story, that's not me. This is all my money. I got to get here. I'm going to do it. So for me, it was, okay, I can take this money and I can plow it back into the business and grow the shit out of all my other brands. And that's what I've done.
All right, welcome to another episode of 2000% Raise, and we have quite a treat today. Before I bring out our first guest, I got to tell you, just reflecting on the industry this man is in, and how it trickles down to us as the consumer. All right, and bear with me here because it'll all make sense when I introduce him. But in my 20s and my 30s, as a single male in downtown Chicago, I never really partook in the whole spending $2,000 at the club kind of thing. I was never one of those bottle service guys or did that stuff. However, I did appreciate a good glass of scotch. I always appreciated a good glass of bourbon. I like a good cognac. Although somebody bought me at Rebar in the Trump Tower once, somebody bought me I think it's called Louis the 13th. And when I found out what he paid for that, I was like, dude, I'm not some chick you're trying to impress here, buddy. But you look back and I'll never forget it. I was at Studio Paris nightclub on Hubbard Street. And again, I was never the guy that was dropping big coin on tables. I just never needed to, man. I played football in college. I'm a 6'5" guy. I think I'm kind of funny and could talk to people without that. And I think I always just kind of took the attitude of like, if I get into that game to try to impress the girls, like now it's a level playing field. Anyone with 50 grand could go spend $1,000 at the club if they want to. You know what I mean? Why would I play that game down there when I don't need to? And I'm quite certain it's cost me some opportunities with women. Like, hey lady, and dude, why are you standing at the bar, you weirdo? Where's your table? Well, I don't really have one. Anyway. But then they'd, find out more of information about me if we got that far and they'd realize that I'm not some brokey or whatever. But, I'll give you a quick one. Studio Paris nightclub. It's like 2011 or some shit. And it's this group of girls with us. I ended up at a table somehow. And she kept wanting me to buy a bottle of Dom or a bottle of Cristal. And they go, well, what are the ladies going to drink, John? And I'm like, we got cranberry and vodka. There's cranberry and vodka right there. It did not go over well, and that night ended young, and I don't think those girls talked to us again. However, I can't say I regret it. So why the hell am I saying all this, John? And my guest is probably thinking, what the fuck podcast did I just agree to here? And I got to tell you guys, this is a treat. We have Brett Berish on the show today. And to give you a quick background, he founded the international wine and spirits company, Sovereign Brands, in 2000. And by the way, Brett, that's right when I was coming out of college. You were founding it while I was kind of promoting nightclubs as a Northwestern football player at that point, by the way. His past brands include Ace of Spades, which he sold to Jay-Z in 2014. Now I talk Dom and Cristal. Okay. No, we're talking the big boys, John. Okay, where's the Ace of Spades shit? Right next to the Louis the 13th, right? Two of his most successful brands in the super premium champagne and premium cognac categories, respectively. Again, Ace of Spades and D'Ussé. Am I pronouncing that right, Brett? D'Ussé. Okay. Current portfolio consists of some of the world's top brands, including Luc Belaire, Bumbu, McQueen, and the Violet Fog, Villon, and Sovereign's newest release, the Deacon, which is a Scotch, which I will be asking you about. Brett, I gotta tell you, man, you'll probably get dominated with questions about that sale to Jay-Z of Ace of Spades, and I do have a couple questions for you on that, but everything else you've done here, man, is really what I want to dominate this interview. Brett Berish, welcome to 2000% Raise.
John, thank you. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks, man.
And
Thanks.
you're more than welcome to have bottles in any nightclubs, as long as it's our.
Well, let's start there, man. In 2000, was that your vision? Were you like, hey, we're going to be this high end alcohol? And actually, you're a Chicago guy. You told me you were off camera here. You told me you were from Winnetka.
Correct.
The bottle service thing at the club wasn't a thing back then, not in Chicago, at least.
Yeah. My goal back then, well, one was I finally decided what I want to do. So that was huge. Finally deciding something, and I wanted to be in this space in the liquor industry. And what's kind of neat is if you asked me 20 some years ago what I want to do, and you ask me today, it's still the same thing. I want to create great brands in categories where I think I've got something better than everybody else's. So that's what it is for me. So if I drink a category and I can come up with something better than the competition I'm after, I want to go after it. And that's what we've been doing ever since. Exactly that.
Well, and let's use that as a quick segue just to get this piece of the conversation out of the way, and maybe we'll circle back to it more at the end. But if I recall correctly, and I could be totally off, I could have made this up in my head one day, but wasn't Jay-Z pissed? I believe he was pissed at Cristal or something. One of the big, I think it was Cristal, kind of shunned the hip hop market, and Jay-Z just said, who the fuck are these guys? You know how much money we just poured into you motherfuckers and all of our rap songs? Fuck you. I'm going to go find a champagne that's just as good as you motherfuckers. And fuck you, Cristal. And he landed with you.
It wasn't exactly like that, but basically they didn't care about their consumer. And Jay made it known that, well, that's not right. And the beauty is of all my brands is they catch people's eye. They're different. They taste different. They taste better. So, which I think is kind of cool. And Jay's a great example of that. Is I didn't know him. He didn't know me, but he heard of and knew this brand.
The brand had already made a name for itself before he bought it.
100%.
Okay.
And that's what, to me, that's what a brand is I think, I think I'm that way. I want to discover something myself. I remember in like 96 or something, I went to a wedding in South Beach of a friend of mine, and my dad met us at a club down in South Beach. I think the club was Chaos. And I remember someone ordered Kettle One to the table, and I'd never heard of the brand. Lo and behold, it's been around for years. But I remember thinking, God, that's a cool brand. That's my brand. I want that to be my brand. And I think that's what people want, is they want to discover things for themselves. And it could be anything. It could be clothing, a watch, anything. But that's what I believe.
You just said something there too. Okay. I happen to be friends with one of the family members of the Nolette family, and that Kettle One's a part of, and just great people. And I believe they're like 12 generations in now.
Yep.
And their family still owns 50% of it.
Yep.
Are you trying to build a legacy like that's going to be here well after you're gone, or is that not your game?
Some people think like that. I don't think like that. To me, it's never been about me. It's never been, my brother would say this, it's always about the brands first. So it's, even me speaking now as somebody is kind of weird, because it's always about the brands. I want it to be about the brands, and the brands are the things that live forever. The brand is the thing that has status. The brand is the thing that I hope is iconic forever and ever. That's the goal. That's the only goal.
Gotcha. And what's I want to make, because we might not come back to it, I do want to make a quick little remark, because people know I talk about 90s rap a lot on the show here and there. NWA in the 90s stopped wearing Raiders hats and moved to White Sox hats for the same reason that Jay-Z shunned Cristal.
Sure. It happens. And my view is, we work with a lot of people, and you don't have to be famous. It could be you. I'm not implying that.
I'm pretty famous, Brett.
But it doesn't matter who it is. If you're a supporter of my brand, I'm going to lean into you.
Got it.
And I think that's a great business practice for anybody in business. Lean in on your fans. Show people love who love you. Doesn't matter who they are, where they are, what they do. You just got to lean in on them.
Well, I saw you nod in your head there, Brad. And those that are listening on RSS audio and not watching on YouTube, if you looked at Brad, he's not like some guy in sunglasses and a leather hat or something like that. He just looks like a normal dude. But what I just described, though, when I was saying that about the White Sox and NWA, I saw you nod in your head before I even finished my sentence. So you're a part of, as you said, leaning in. I'm assuming you're a part of that hip hop culture. Give us a little flavor of how that's happened organically.
Yeah, well, I think you can't fake shit. I think, part of building a business, and I'm using business as the example, I can't pretend that I like country music. That's not me. Right. I can't pretend that I'm going to go play tennis tomorrow. That's not me. Yeah. So I tend to, everything I do has to feel real to me, has to be part of me, has to be part of a lifestyle. So in this case, music is part of my lifestyle. Hip hop, 100% part of my lifestyle. Being involved in the culture, part of my lifestyle. Streetwear, like that's all me. So I'm going to lean in on what feels like me, because then it's natural, it's organic. And that's how we built our business, is always thinking that way. So as an example, Belaire, our champagne, is in 80 plus countries. And I was just in Greece. I was in Greece promoting our brands, and I stopped by a a record label. It's the single biggest Greek record label in Greece, but it's for hip hop. That's still my lane. Even in Greece, that's my lane. So I just live and breathe what I like.
Awesome. And then did you get catapulted into this? Did you get that, for lack of a better, actually for a perfect way to phrase it, some street credit with the whole Ace of Spades transaction? Did that put you on the map within that community?
I don't know if it did or didn't. I think more the question I always get is, why'd you sell?
Okay. Yeah.
And in that case, my answer is I had lots of brand ideas I wanted to do, but I didn't have any money. To me, selling it's the worst and most difficult decision I've ever made, but it's the best and worst thing to ever happen. It's like selling a child, but what happened was I got money finally, and now I get to do all these other brands I wanted to do. So it just took me longer than everyone else, but to me, this is how I got here.
So that's safe to say then with Sovereign Brand, or excuse me, with Ace of Spades, even though you were having success, every dollar was really being poured back into the brand.
100%. So it's weird. You could be wealthy on paper, but not have anything.
Right.
And it's a weird feeling where, boy, we're doing well, but I got nothing to show for it. Like, it's a weird thing. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I've been there, man. And as a venture capitalist now, I'll tell you what, I always give the example of these technology companies that I'm involved in. It's like they're never going to make money on their own, but hopefully Comcast or Amazon or Meta or someone like that comes and buys us, because they're going to have all these different applications of it. And that's not really different than what you're talking about right now, Brett. When you take a brand, okay, I'm not going to ask you the dollar amount unless it's public and you talk about it, but if Jay-Z could take this brand and do so much more with it from a marketing standpoint, because he's Jay-Z. That's not any different than Comcast buying this technology company, because now they have the distribution with all these different cable and Wi-Fi channels. You know what I mean? And sometimes that works for you and against you as the seller, because you know how much they're going to make off of this shit, but you know what you're limited to that you could make off this shit,
Yeah, for me, it wasn't necessarily that. It was years and years ago, I had raised private equity money, and that just was the wrong move. They don't have the patience I had. They didn't have the vision I had. They didn't see it. So I made the decision I'm going to go slow. And I'm not going to raise any money. It's just going to be me. So what that does is I'm limited on my growth.
Yep.
I remember, John, I remember speaking at a Citibank conference for disruptive brands. And before I went up and spoke, it's one of the founders of this company, Casper Beds. They call it a unicorn. It's crazy.
Okay.
In 1 year, they were in 7 continents and doing $1 billion in sales and raised billions and billions of dollars. And it was just insane. And I got up there and I said, listen, if you want to hear that story, that's not me. This is all my money. I got to get here. I'm going to do it. So for me, it was, okay, I can take this money and I can plow it back into the business and grow the shit out of all my other brands. And that's what I've done.
Wow. That's awesome, man. And, I've had these conversations. I was just a guest on Sean Kelly's podcast recently, and he talked about how he took stock in the company that bought his and ended up going to zero. And I took stock in the private equity firm that bought mine and ended up making me different level rich. And it's like, you add now your context of it. Okay, that it was fine, but they moved me too fast and I don't want to do that shit again. It's once private equity gets you, man, they want to their biggest thing is your company is part of a private equity fund. And if you're the leader of that fund, like the company I worked for that bought mine, man, we were probably up, just calling for, say we're up 90% and somebody else is down 12%. Well, collectively, if that fund could return 28% in 4 years, they're selling you to another private equity firm.
Correct.
That's the way it goes.
Correct.
The way it goes. Are you able to disclose what you sold the jersey for?
Enough to be happy. How's that?
for those that aren't familiar with Chicagoland, Brett and I were sharing a laugh. I grew up in Schaumburg, very, very middle class. Brett grew up in Winnetka, which is not too far from Northwestern University. It's an area called the North Shore. So his standard of benchmark to get to was probably much higher than mine as a child growing up. So it's kind of cool that you've kind of expanded into this creative space. Did you didn't come from an alcohol family, did you?
No, I did. My dad was in the liquor business for 45 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's where I never worked in the industry, but that's where I got the love of what he did. If you asked him, he didn't want me to do this. I think like any parent, you want hopefully your kid to do something easier.
Yeah.
But when that's all he talked about at the dinner table, and when you're 6 years old, you walk to school with alcohol in your hands, take to your teachers, you're kind of thrown into that at an early age. I love it. I love it. As I was saying, before we got on, and I think there's 2 types of people out there. There's one who knows exactly what they want to do in life and they go do it. God bless them. That's amazing. I think the other one was someone like me who I had lots of ideas and never picked anything. So I'm lost, completely lost. And luckily I had one day I said, screw it, I'm going to do this. And I've never run out of ideas. And yet I'm really happy with what I'm doing.
Hey, everybody, I want to invite you to check out 2000%raised.com. Here you could buy the 2000% Raised book, also available on Amazon. You could check out 2000% Raised merchandise, as well as 2000% Raised special events that might be coming to your city soon. Last but not least, you can enroll in the 2000% Raised curriculum, which will help you on your entrepreneurial journey. Don't forget to follow at John Cerasani on Instagram and TikTok as well. Thank you for being a supporter of the show. Can I ask you something, man? As an early stage VC, I get a lot of these liquor companies coming across my emails with pitch decks and everything else, and everyone thinks they have this great freaking thing, man. And I stay away from it for the most part. I am in one deal right now, and there's a reason why I'm in it that's alcohol related, but I stay away from it for the most part because about 10 years ago, guys that own a pretty popular bar chain around Chicago. They own the John Barleycorns, the Old Crow Smokehouses, the Moe's Cantinas. They tried to put out their own vodka, and they called it Four Rebels, and they put it on all their clubs, and they're pushing it. And finally, they just stopped. And I'm good friends with one of the guys over there, and he told me, listen, man, it's a tough industry. It was a vodka. In the meantime, you got Snow Queen vodka with whomever they had behind them dropping tens and tens of millions that couldn't make it happen. Snow Queen's not around anymore. It's just a tough effing industry, bro.
Yeah.
You know, what's your advice for any entrepreneurs trying to penetrate this market?
Well, I have two views. One is I don't know any industry that's easy.
Yeah.
So I think they're all hard. I think they all have difficulties. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it. Then it would be hard again. I think with this industry or anything, and this is where I've come and learned, by mistake, is I think we want it too fast. And I think it should happen really fast. And, I get pitches all the time where someone says, if I could just get 1% of the tequila category in 5 years, I'll be doing this much in volume and then I'll sell it for 20 times because this guy sold for 20 times.
Yeah.
It's just not the reality of it.
And then they're talking about Ryan Reynolds, an aviator, Ryan Reynolds. That's the case study. I go, okay, buddy.
Correct. And I could point to 99 other celebrities who have brands who failed. So I don't know. I come from it,
and I'm in like 12 of them. I'm just kidding.
I come from it. I come from a perspective of, again, if it was not my money, maybe it had a different view of the world. But since it's my money, and if it's your money in there, you got to love what you freaking do, and be happy during the process of getting there, because you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when it's going to go. Something will happen, but you just don't know. But you got to be happy with what you're doing.
Can you even do it without raising money? You need investor money behind you to even walk down the street, don't you?
It's all relative. It's all relative to what you want. So to give you the downside part of my story. So I put all my money in the business. I stopped paying my mortgage, John, and had the marshals come back, and then they foreclosed on your house. They put a lock on your door and put a sign.
Crap! Really?
I stopped paying my taxes, and because I could put more money in the business, and the IRS can come and sweep your bank account. So the
image I painted of you of being this well-off person in Winnetka just got wiped out with that story.
Yeah. So John, I put my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, I put my salary in her name because I'm hoping they couldn't find her. But I remember being on and I tell this story, being on a call, talking to my mom, and we were on a call that day with our board. We had investors, as I said, and they wanted to wind up the company. And I remember telling my mother this, and she's like, "Brett, I'll sell my rings for you." And I remember telling her, if I could just live on what I'm doing, I'm happy. And I needed to go through that experience, because then it all just slowed down. It's not about chasing money. It's just about being happy. And then everything else happened. Success came.
Nice. Could you have ever imagined, bro? Could you spell out the economics for us? Okay, if I go to Tao nightclub right now, what's a bottle of Ace of Spades? I got some listeners, probably they know it right off the top of their head, and they're yelling at the screen right now. All right, I'm gonna just go ahead again, guys. I never had to buy bottles at the club to pick up girls. All right, I'm not you. Okay, I'm just kidding. Let's say $1,200 for a bottle of Ace of Spades at Tao nightclub. That's
probably 8 to 12. I remember we used to do something fun back then, because my whole thing with Ace was to do exactly that, big single bottle purchases. So my ultimate goal was to get on a menu and make it like lobster. Nice. And it was market price, just MP.
Market price for the champagne?
Yeah.
And what's that based on? How many girls were in the club that night?
It's like lobster. It's market price, whatever it is. And we do that with, Belaire is our other brand, and that's more like Moet, and that's again bottle service. And I love that. I think the parties are amazing, and I think going to those events and going to those clubs is just it's part of life.
Well, there you go. They're leaning into it right there, man. And that's exactly what you talked about earlier. Hey man, so $1,000 bottle at a club, what regardless of the brand, let's just keep it in the champagne category, costs probably what manufacturing to get out the door at your end?
It all depends on the brand. So if it's it all depends. For us, it was really expensive because everything is hand done, handmade, and processed. There was no machines. So it's all relative. We've got our newest brand you mentioned, which is a Scotch called the Deacon. It's expensive to make because because it's coming from two different isles in Scotland, because it's peated, because it's smoked, because the bottle, you can't see through it. It's copper. It's expensive. It's expensive, and it should be.
Well, I'm going to ask you some more about the Deacon there, but what is so it goes from you guys to who? The distributor, and then the distributor to the grocery store or the club?
It depends on the country. So in the United States, we'll stick with the US, the liquor business operates in what's called a 3-tier system. And the 3 tiers are, one is a supplier, and I'd be the supplier. I make the stuff. And then I would sell it to a distributor. So in Illinois, it could be Wertz or Southern Wine and Spirits.
Okay.
The 2 big distributors. And then
he just passed, by the way. Did you see that?
Exactly. Sad. And then Rocky or Wertz would have sold it to then bars, restaurants, retailers. So there's 3 tiers to it by law. I couldn't sell direct to a bar or restaurant.
Okay. And then our different brands all jockeying to get their place in the distributor's line.
100%. So that's where it's really competitive, because the distributors are massive today. So, between Southern and R&D and Wertz, or Breakthrough in Chicago could be, 70% of all brands.
Gotcha. I'm in a deal right now. It's called Kickstand Cocktails, very early stages, but a good fellow named Darren Rovell is a Chicago guy. He went to Northwestern at least, but he's been on ESPN. He's an ESPN reporter and is an Action Sports now. He's got some big names involved. JJ Watt's involved. I'm an early investor. It's a pretty good looking cap table, if I do say so myself. Anyhow, we're trying to get in, he's got 2 million Twitter followers. So he's going out there. He's sitting right there. He's going to the Brinnies. Hey, not only if you put me in here, I'll also tweet, hey, you guys are the first ones to have this in the state of Tennessee. I'll tweet it. He's really, really, really pushing. And I go, Darren, you're like, he's a busy guy. He's on TV and you're flying all over doing this yourself. He goes, bro, it's the only way it's going to work. This shit's competitive out there.
He's 100% right, and he's doing it right. I fully believe. I just don't think you can, don't assume, one tweet, one Instagram post, one Facebook will do it. I assume the worst, but I think if the way you describe it, God bless him.
Why is it so difficult to get distribution from one state to the next? You have to go state by state, right?
It all dates back to Prohibition.
Okay.
It all dates back. It's still a state by state distribution model. There are some states, not to bore you or anybody, but the state of Pennsylvania is the single biggest probably retailer in the United States. That's owned by the government.
Really?
So if you go to Pennsylvania and you go into a store, that store is the state. So they're the distributor and the retailer.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it all dates. Everything in the liquor business is old school. Dates back to Prohibition.
Wow. Well, there you go. There's gems all over this episode. Brett's like saying this shit like it's so second nature. Well, of course this, and we're all like learning. We're hanging on every word here, Brett. I love it, my man. Let's get back to Deacon though. That's your new brand. I gotta tell you, brother, I was a Scotch guy for years, and I made the fatal mistake once. The fatal mistake of switching. I remember the night I did it. I was at Mastro's in River North, and I switched to frickin' bourbon Manhattans, and it went down so good like water. And I did it a couple weeks in a row, and I tried to move back to Scotch, and I couldn't. But me and Scotch had a really nice run. I was you talked about
you back. I'll get you back.
Dude, after getting used to bourbon though, man, Scotch almost tastes like watered down almost. I don't know.
No. If you try my Deacon, which is this thing.
Okay.
It's the most amazing Scotch. It's the most amazing whiskey. So I'm going to throw it in the whiskey category. Irish, American, bourbon. It's smoky. It's bonfire. It's got some peat in it. It tastes expensive, and it is.
So shed some light for this on it. I've always wondered it over the years. Okay, so you, as a Scotch guy, you're you're probably not going to make fun of what I'm going to say because you're not one that would ever throw shade at competitors, especially ones that are successful. But a lot of people know Johnny Walker and the colored labels, okay? And blue label, everyone's a blue label. That's a 25 year. And then you start arguing with people. You say, well, no, it's a blended. You can't call it 25 year. Well, yeah, but that's their version of 25 year. And then you get the Scotch connoisseur with a freaking cigar chiming in. Well, actually, you shouldn't even be drinking that. You should be drinking the single malt. Johnny Walker shouldn't even be in this conversation. Now, here you are with Deacon, which you just talked about as high end. I didn't hear you say 18 year. I didn't hear you say 20 year or 25 year. It's a blended Scotch. Could you kind of give us some insight on this conversation?
I'm with you on making fun of everyone who's talking about that shit, because if you line all those brands up and taste them blind, I bet you no one can tell the difference.
Awesome.
From in the same family. So I just think it's smoke and mirrors. And I think the industry, a lot of times, I don't know, history doesn't make good for good brands, for tasting brands. So I look at it this way. A painter, if he had one color, can't do much, but he has lots of colors. He can really create something beautiful. To me, it's the same thing when I look at whiskey or the way we made our rum. Anybody can make a single malt. It's a single malt, wait for it to age, and you're done. Okay. Like, the beauty is a blend. That's where you get to have fun. That's where you get characteristics and different flavors and different profiles, different years. Different years taste different. So to me, not only can you make a better product, it's a more sophisticated product. It's got more mouthfeel. It's got more character. So the Deacon is all of those things combined, which makes it a completely unique product that's better.
What's retail at a Binny's for Deacon?
Deacon will probably be $35. It's not crazy. $35 a bottle.
Okay.
But it just it's bringing new consumers to the category whose reaction is, geez, I don't like Scotch. Oh wow, this is different. Or it's a Scotch drinker who's like, wait a minute, this is nice. Like, all my brands have the same thing. There's a reaction, because I don't want what you described, where you've got three, blue, yellow, and green labels. You can't tell the difference. Yeah, I want a discernible difference.
So it is Johnny Walker, the red and the black, they charge $10 difference between those bottles. Is that just marketing?
No, I take it back. I think red and black taste different. There's no question. Once you start going up from there, I think it's just drastically different.
Okay. Interesting.
Meaning you don't get difference. You don't.
Even between black and blue? Yeah.
It's not me. That's not me.
Well, they snuck in that green label in between now. So it goes black, green, then red. Yeah. Anyway. But okay. So the Deacon, though, did you say it has a smokiness to it?
Yeah. So it's got two different types of, if you want to stick with smoke, one is bonfire. We get that space side. And the other is peats. And we get that from Islay region of Scotland. So Islay and space side. And that blend of those two, plus a little bit of sweetness. John, I'm going to bring you back to the category. You're never going back to bourbon again. Really, I'm not kidding. I guarantee you try it, you're going to hit me and say, Brett, I'm shocked. This tastes different.
I'll tell you this, man. It was from living at the Trump Tower that Rebar is the bar in the lobby there. And I would go, there's only so many regulars at the place, and that was one of them. Anyway, the bartender got me on Belvini once. She kind of was making fun of me for ordering Johnny Walker all the time. You got to try this Belvini stuff. And if anyone's never had a Scotch with a smokiness to it, it's a freaking experience. Like, I never had it till I was probably 35 the first time I drank something with a smoky like that. I'm like, holy shit, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, and I'm a huge, I'm a big, old shoe Scotch drinker,
Okay.
But that's too much for most people. Like, that's way too much. This gets you in the game, and you just feel like this is nice. This is sophisticated. I can drink this on the rocks. I can drink it neat. I can make a penicillin. I can do anything with cocktails. It's got a lot going on.
Awesome. Well, let's move off that, man. I don't know if everybody loves Scotch quite as much as me, but I'll keep talking to that for another hour about that. Let's talk about social media, my friend. You've been able to do some things on social media that's kind of been more organic in nature. It appears, at least, or maybe you're doing such a good job with your paid stuff. It seems organic. Could you comment on that?
Sure. The best example would be, which I love, is I have a rum called Bumbu, which is the number one premium rum in the US. It's probably the number one premium rum in like 60, 70 countries.
Okay.
I have more followers on Bumbu than Captain Morgan and Bacardi.
Really?
And just think about that from a business perspective. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising, and I don't spend anything.
Wow.
And this tells me that our brand is connecting with consumers, that they like it, that it has an effect on them. To me, social media is fantastic for that reason. It tells you authentically, if you're not paying for them, what's happening with your brands. And I think it's a great barometer to, in some cases, to success, because it tells you what's going on. So, and it's the same with Belaire. I think we have, between our 3 Belaire Instagram sites, over 1.5 million followers. That's enormous for a liquor brand.
Wow.
Connecting with the consumers.
And Brett, is it a chicken and the egg kind of thing with that, though, right? Like to get that kind of growth, they had to have experienced it somehow in the first place. To get distribution, don't you need to have some kind of presence to get the distribution in the first place? Is this a kind of a conundrum?
No, you need both. You need both. It's almost like, I don't believe in the model of advertising and then build distribution off the advertising. I think just the opposite. You got to build distribution first and then you advertise. But I also think you got to have a lot of distribution before you advertise. Gotcha. I'm not of the view, go to Vegas, you're going out to a nightclub, you experience the Deacon, you go home and you go ask for it at your local retailer. That doesn't happen. Happen. No one does that.
Well, and to build distribution, that entails relationships with the distributors, correct? And isn't that even somewhat commoditized nowadays? I've heard it's like little guys can't even compete in that space because you got to give so much product to them for free to even get them to return a phone call. It's
a convoluted model, but at the end of the day, to me, I think old school. It's going out there and selling. Going out there, visiting the bartender, visiting the buyers, visiting the accounts, talking to them, educating on the brand, and building an army. Same with the trade, same with the distributors, finding people who believe in your brand. So it's not, for me, it's not going to come from paid advertising, because it's like you said earlier, I forgot what brand, where they're spending tens of millions of dollars, to get it out there.
Snow Queen. They're gone now. It's Snow Queen.
I can't do that. I don't have that. I can't pretend to be somebody I'm not. How's that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And is there any, could you grassroots it the old fashioned way where people do with other products? Maybe it wouldn't work in liquor, where you're going to the restaurant or people are requesting it at the restaurants and bars, and then they're then putting pressure on the distributor to start carrying it? Or is that that's too,
it helps.
And unicorns.
Yeah, it helps, but you need both.
Yeah.
You need both. You need to have a distributor in place, so when that account wants to order it, they're just calling their current distributor and saying, "Hey, I hear you guys carry this brand. Can I have it?"
Got it. That makes sense, man. That makes sense. Cool, man. Anything else you want to talk about, Brett? I end the show with a final question that's going to probably throw a curveball at you, but I'm sure you're going to answer it well. We talked about a lot of things here. Anything else you wanted to say about your relationship with the artists out there, or the, that culture at all that you want to speak to?
I love, to me, they're all family. Everybody we work with, whether it's a Steve Aoki or a Post Malone or Wiz Khalifa or Ross or Wayne, awesome. I could mention Chaco in Africa, or Stoneboy in Africa, or we got artists everywhere. So they're all family to me, and my job is to help them, and because they've been supporters of us. So that's there's nothing better than being there for people when they support you.
I love that list you just said, bro. I'm about to co-invest with Steve Aoki on a brand out in Los Angeles that's doing pretty well, and I can't say it yet, but by the time this airs, hopefully we will be signed and
He's
and
a
ready.
great guy. He's a great ambassador. He works his ass off. So love him to death.
Isn't it cool though when you see people like that, man, just like having that kind of success that are even messing around in like the venture capital and business space, because you look at them in such a different light, and it's kind of cool that they're being entrepreneurs too, isn't it?
See, what's great about Steve is he's curious, and curious people want to learn, and they want to understand, and they want to do more. And I love people like that. You know, Ross is that way, where they're open-minded and they're going to take something from you and use it and to make themselves better. So I'm not surprised with Steve at all.
Brother, that's so cool that you just said that. I've alluded to him many times on this podcast and in social media. I bought a second home out in Los Angeles because I started doing this early stage VC stuff after I exited my insurance company, and I was shocked, Brett, on how quickly celebrities, especially athletes, I've found gravitate towards successful business people. It was almost like I felt like I was on, dude, you guys setting me up. This guy wants to be friends with me. This guy wants to be friends with me. Why? I'm like, no, I want to be friends with them. You know, wait, I could still take a selfie with them, right? Well, no, you're equal level. You know, it's just a cool dynamic. Now I'm sure there's a whole big portion of them that don't give one shit about business and anything else me or you are saying. And, you know, we don't encounter those guys, but the ones that do want it.
I think, John, that's everybody in business, right? You're going to get, you know, a percentage that are like this, a percentage of like this and like this, you know? So, but I see, you know, I'm good friends with Warren Sapp. He's curious, you know. I just saw Cam Jordan down in Miami. Love him to death. He wants to know. Like,
nice.
It's fun to be around people that want to know more and want to experience things.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I love that. I love that you shared that. All right, Brett. We end the show with a question that we ask everybody. Doesn't have to be about anything we've talked about today. Doesn't have to be about your industry. It certainly can be. Brett Berish recommends what movie to the 2000% Raise audience?
Oh, I just saw Oppenheimer. I'd go see it.
What's it called?
Oppenheimer.
Oh, is that out right now?
It's out right now. Oh, it's huge.
Okay.
It's really good.
By the way, I love it when earlier I said something like I didn't know who you were talking about with some bad company. Oh, they're worth billions. They're gigantic. Oh, Oppenheimer. What is that? It's huge. It's the number one movie.
Oppenheimer, the movie, that and Barbie are the two big movies right now.
Well, I've heard of Barbie. Thank you, Brett.
But I'll give you, if I can give you two other ones, I'll give you a fun one.
What's Oppenheimer about, though? Just give us a quick.
It's about the Manhattan Project, the atomic bomb.
Whoa, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Very intense. 3-hour movie. I will recommend an old movie that's my favorite, which is The Man Who Would Be King with Sean Connery and Michael Caine. Fantastic.
Awesome.
That's my movie.
Well, thanks a lot, man. This has been awesome. From Barrington to Winnetka, you're down in Florida right now. I appreciate you for joining the show, my friend.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me on the 2000% Raise.
And that wraps up another episode of 2000% Raise. Thank you for listening. The best way to support our show is by leaving a rating or review on all platforms you listened on. And of course, by following, liking, or subscribing. Visit us at 2000percentraise.com or at John Cerasani on TikTok and Instagram. And of course, my YouTube channel at John Cerasani's 2000% Raise. Find all the ways to follow today's guests in our show notes. Thank you for being a part of our entrepreneurial journey.